Kiwan stood before the Council of Elders and felt small. He always felt small in this place. The Temple of Eternal Accord floated in deep space, a massive station where every galactic species came to solve their problems with words instead of weapons. For 800 years, the temple had kept peace. Kiwan was proud that humans had been part of that peace for 2 centuries now. Ambassador Kiwan, the Veltharan Emperor said, his voice like distant thunder. The Emperor was old, older than Earth itself. His kind had traveled the stars when humans still lived in caves. Earth requests permission to expand colonies to the outer rim. The Council finds this premature. Kiwan wanted to argue but held his tongue. Around him, representatives from a dozen species watched with what he recognized as pity. They saw humans as children playing at diplomacy, young, emotional, needing protection from the dangerous universe. His daughter Hana sat behind him, taking notes on her tablet. She was 22, brilliant, and frustrated with how other species treated them. Kiwan could see it in the tight set of her jaw. He placed a hand on her shoulder, a gentle reminder to stay calm. "We understand the Council's concerns," Kiwan said carefully, "but humanity has proven ourselves peaceful. We follow all regulations. We maintain only ceremonial guards, no military. We've never broken a single treaty." "Precisely why you need more time," another elder said, this one from a species whose name Kiwan could barely pronounce. "You are peaceful because you are protected. The outer rim has dangers you cannot imagine." The meeting ended as they always did. Humanity's request was denied. They would stay in their safe corner of the galaxy, their population limited, their reach restricted, for their own good, of course. Taeyang waited outside the council chamber. He commanded Earth's ceremonial guard at the temple, 20 soldiers in dress uniforms who mostly stood at attention during boring meetings. He was tall for a human with sharp eyes that never stopped moving. "How did it go?" he asked, though his tone said he already knew. "Same as always," Kiwan replied. "We're too young, too weak, too fragile." Hana made a disgusted sound. "We've been too young for 200 years. When will they see us as equals?" "Maybe never," Taeyang said quietly. "Come on, Nari wants to see you. She found something in the archives." They found Nari in the temple's library, surrounded by holographic displays. She was a xenoanthropologist, someone who studied how different species developed and lived. Right now, she looked worried. That concerned Kiwan because Nari never worried about anything. "Look at this," she said, pulling up an old document. The text was in a language Kiwan didn't recognize, but the symbols made his skin crawl. They looked almost familiar, like something from ancient Earth history. "I was researching human integration into the Galactic Union. I wanted to understand why our development was so strictly controlled." "And?" Hana leaned forward, interested. "Most species have open records. Their first contact, their treaties, their cultural data, everything is public. But humanity's file has gaps, big ones. There are references to a quarantine period and something called Project Sanctuary. All the detailed files are sealed, marked with these symbols." Kiwan studied the symbols. They looked like old military markers from Earth's history, but that made no sense. Humans hadn't had a military when they met the Galactic Union. They'd barely reached their own moon when the first alien ships arrived. "Can you access the sealed files?" Taeyang asked. His voice had changed, becoming harder somehow. "Not without council permission, which we'll never get." Nari looked frustrated. "But I made copies of what I could find. There are references to something called the Harvest Wars. Ever heard of them?" Everyone shook their heads. Galactic history wasn't Kiwan's strong point, but he'd never encountered that term. "Neither had I," Nari said, which is strange because apparently they were the bloodiest conflict in galactic history. Happened about 3,000 years ago. Nearly wiped out half the elder species. But there's almost no information about them. It's like someone erased the details on purpose. Before anyone could respond, the temple shook. Not physically, but something else. Kiwan felt it in his chest like a deep vibration that made his heart skip. Around them, alien diplomats stumbled, some crying out in what sounded like fear. What was that? Hana grabbed a desk for support. An alarm began to sound. Red lights flashed through the corridors. Over the speakers, a calm voice announced something in the elder language, then repeated in human terms. "All species are to report to their designated safe zones." "This is not a drill." "Repeat, this is not a drill." Taeyang immediately moved toward the door. "My unit needs to secure the human quarters." Ambassador, get your daughter to safety. What's happening? Kiwan demanded, but Taiyang was already running. Through the library's windows, Kiwan could see space itself looked wrong. There were ripples in the darkness, like someone dropping stones in still water. Ships near the temple were activating their engines, moving away fast. An elder rushed past, one of the Velthoran council members. Kiwan had never seen one of them run before. The ancient being looked terrified, which terrified Kiwan because elders weren't supposed to be afraid of anything. Ambassador, Nari said, her voice shaking. She was staring at her tablet, at news feeds coming from across the galaxy. Deep space monitoring stations are reporting something. Ships, thousands of them. Coming from nowhere. They matched descriptions from the Harvest Wars. I thought you said there was no information about those wars, Hana said. There wasn't. Until now. The old files are automatically unlocking. It's like someone set them to open only if... Nari went pale. Only if the enemy returned. The temple shook again, harder this time. Kiwan heard screaming from the corridors. The calm announcement voice was gone, replaced by urgent warnings in multiple languages. His translator struggled to keep up, but he caught phrases that made his blood run cold. Voidborn detected. All military forces to respond. Repeat, all military forces to respond. The Voidborn have returned. Kiwan looked at his daughter, at Nari, at the chaos erupting around them. He thought about the sealed files, the missing history, the symbols that looked like ancient human military markers. He thought about how the galaxy kept humanity small and weak and safe, and he wondered for the first time what they had been kept safe from. Or what the galaxy had been kept safe from. Outside the windows, the first alien warship exploded in purple fire. Something massive moved through the darkness, too large to comprehend, covered in what looked like screaming faces. It reached toward the temple with appendages that defied physics. The Voidborn had come. And the Temple of Eternal Accord, 800 years of unbroken peace, began to crack. Dongyun watched his screens with growing horror. He commanded Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station, a small facility on the edge of human territory. Most days were boring. Ships passing by, routine scans, checking for asteroids. Not today. Captain, I'm reading over 5,000 contacts, his communications officer said. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook. They just appeared. No warp signatures, no engine trails. They came from nowhere. Show me, Dongyun ordered. The main screen filled with red dots, each one representing a ship. They were moving toward the temple, toward the heart of galactic civilization. Their design made no sense to his eyes. Organic shapes, wrong angles, things that hurt to look at directly. Get me fleet command, he said. Then he stopped. Humans didn't have fleet command. They had a ceremonial guard and some patrol boats. Nothing that could fight whatever was on his screen. A message came through on the emergency channel. It was old, automated, triggered by something that recognized these ships. The message played, in a language his computer struggled to translate, but the meaning was clear enough. The Voidborn. The enemy from the old wars. The reason the galaxy built the temple. They were back. Across the galaxy, Minji pressed her face against the viewing window of her research station. She studied alien biology, cataloging the incredible variety of life in the universe. Now she was cataloging something that shouldn't be alive. A Voidborn scout ship had crashed on the asteroid where her station was built. It was small, barely 30 meters long, but when her team went to investigate, 3 of them never came back. The things that crawled from the wreckage moved wrong, thought wrong, existed wrong. She recorded everything, sending data back to Earth. Someone needed to understand these creatures if there was any hope of fighting them. What she found made her sick. The Voidborn weren't just aliens. They were parasites from another dimension, feeding on the psychic energy of civilized species. They were drawn to peace, to order, to everything the Galactic Union had built. 800 years of harmony had created the biggest feast in the universe. Dr. Minji, her assistant called. The temple is under siege. They're asking all species to send military support. Minji laughed bitterly. We don't have military support. We have Taiyang's ceremonial guard. At the temple, Taiyang proved her wrong. The Voidborn breached the outer hull in a dozen places. They poured through like a dark tide, creatures of nightmare and madness. The elder species sent their forces to respond, soldiers in gleaming armor with weapons that could level buildings. They died in seconds. The Voidborn were too fast, too savage, too hungry. They tore through advanced armor like paper. They ignored energy shields. They killed with claws and teeth and things that had no name. Taeyang watched the security feeds and made a decision. All units, actual combat protocols. Authorization Taeyang Alpha 7. His second-in-command, Hyun-woo, looked at him with understanding. The older man had been Taeyang's mentor, teaching him things that weren't supposed to be taught. Things from before humans were peaceful. Are you sure? Hyun-woo asked quietly. They're dying out there. Someone has to do something. 20 human soldiers moved through the temple corridors. They didn't wear the fancy dress uniforms anymore. Instead, they wore simple combat gear, carried basic weapons. Nothing advanced, nothing that would raise questions during inspections. But the way they moved was different. They advanced in perfect formation, covering angles, reading each other like they'd done this 1,000 times. Because they had, in training, that was supposed to be historical reenactment. The first Voidborn turned the corner and screamed at them, a sound that made the alien defenders freeze in terror. The human soldiers didn't freeze. They fired. The shots were precise, aimed at what Minji's data identified as weak points. The Voidborn stumbled. Before it could recover, Taeyang was there with a blade, moving under its guard, striking at joints that shouldn't exist. The creature fell. More came. 20 of them. 30. A wave of hunger and hate. The alien defenders ran. The humans held their ground. Hyun-woo fought like he was dancing. Every movement efficient. No wasted energy. Just like the simulations, he called out. Watch your spacing. They're fast but predictable. Nothing about this is predictable, a young soldier shouted back, but she was grinning as she fought. Something in her had woken up, something that had been sleeping. In the command center, the Council of Elders watched their security feeds in shock. The Velthuran Emperor leaned forward, his ancient eyes wide. That's impossible. They're ceremonial guards. They shouldn't know how to fight like that, but they did fight like that. The humans pushed the Voidborn back meter by meter. They took injuries but didn't stop. When one fell, another took their place. They fought with a coordination that spoke of deep training and deeper instinct. Kiwon watched the same feeds from the human quarters where he'd taken Hana and Nari. He felt something strange in his chest. Pride, yes, but also confusion. How are they doing that? He whispered. Because someone taught them, Nari said. She'd been digging through more files, the ones automatically unlocking as the crisis deepened. Look at this. There are references to human preservation units across all our colonies. They're supposed to maintain historical knowledge of Earth's military past, but these reports suggest they do more than preserve history. They keep it alive. Hana pulled up more data. There are similar programs on Earth itself. Training centers disguised as museums. Weapons factories disguised as mining operations. It's like someone's been preparing for this. Preparing for what? Kiwon asked. We joined the galaxy peacefully. We agreed to all restrictions. Did we? Nari's voice was quiet. Or did someone make us agree? Look at the dates. Right after first contact, humans went through something called integration therapy. Every human on Earth, treated with technology that was supposed to help us adapt to galactic culture. But what if it did more? What if it made us forget something? Alarms blared through the station. Dongyun's voice came over the speakers, broadcast to the entire temple. This is Earth Deep Space Station 7. We're tracking a Voidborn fleet. Main force estimated at 2,000 ships heading for the temple. ETA 3 hours. We're broadcasting their composition and weak points from our sensor data. Someone needs to organize a defense. The council chamber erupted in panic. The elder species had military forces, but they were ceremonial, like humanity's. 800 years of peace had made them soft. Their ships were luxurious transports, not warships. Their soldiers trained for parades, not battles. Only humanity's guards were actually fighting and winning. 20 soldiers holding back hundreds, a Voidborn where thousands of galactic defenders had failed. The Veltheran Emperor made a decision. He opened a communication channel broadcasting to Earth itself. This is the Council of Elders requesting military assistance from the human homeworld. We understand you maintain only ceremonial forces, but any support would be valued. On Earth, in a facility that officially didn't exist, Suman received the message. She was Earth's Prime Minister, elected to keep humanity safe and peaceful. Now she faced an impossible choice. Around her, military officers waited. Officers who officially didn't exist, commanding forces that officially weren't there. They'd been waiting generations for this moment, training in secret, preparing for a war the galaxy had made humanity forget. If we reveal our forces, they'll know we've been hiding them, an admiral said. They'll know we kept our military despite the treaties. If we don't reveal them, the temple falls, Suman replied. The galaxy falls, and we fall with it. She thought about her daughter, stationed at a colony world. She thought about every human who'd grown up believing they were weak, fragile, needing protection. She thought about the sealed files Nari had found, the erased history, the truth that was starting to emerge. Send the fleet, she ordered. All of it. It's time they remembered what we are. In the temple, Taeyang's team secured another corridor. Bodies lay around them, voidborn and alien defenders both. Only the humans were still standing, breathing hard but unbroken. More incoming, Hyunwoo reported. Big ones this time, the kind that killed entire companies of elder troops. Taeyang checked his ammunition, running low. He looked at his team, saw their determination, their readiness. Then we make every shot count. The civilians are still evacuating. We hold until they're safe. They didn't question the order. They just prepared to fight again, these ceremonial guards who fought like warriors born. Because somewhere deep inside, past the peaceful years and the gentle integration, they remembered what humans had always been. Outside, Earth's fleet activated their engines and began to move. The war gods were stirring. Yuna's fingers flew across her keyboard, breaking through security protocols that should have stopped her. She was good at this, maybe the best hacker humanity had. Right now, with the temple falling apart and elders running for escape pods, nobody was watching their precious archives. I'm in, she said over the secure channel to Nari. Sending you everything. The files poured out. Thousands of documents, videos, reports. 2,000 years of hidden history flooding across the network. Nari tried to process it all, her mind struggling with the implications of what she was reading. This can't be right, she whispered. But it was right. It was all there, documented and sealed, waiting for this exact moment. Humans hadn't joined the galaxy 200 years ago. They'd been found 2,000 years ago, at the end of the Harvest Wars. Found and feared. Kiwan read over Nari's shoulder, his face going pale. The documents described human colonies scattered across space, primitive ships held together with determination and ingenuity. They described humans fighting the Voidborn with weapons that were centuries behind galactic standard. Humans dying by the millions but never surrendering. The elder species had been losing the war. Their advanced technology, their superior tactics, none of it worked against an enemy that didn't follow the rules of reality. The Voidborn adapted, too fast, learned too quickly, fed on the fear and order that made civilization possible. Then humans arrived. Humans from a planet the reports called the worst death world in explored space. A world where everything evolved to kill everything else, where survival meant constant struggle, where peace was a luxury and war was Tuesday. One report detailed a battle at a place called the Gorgon Cluster. 3 human ships, barely functional, rammed into a Voidborn dreadnought. They boarded it. They fought through its corridors with makeshift weapons and bare hands if necessary. They set off their own reactor in the enemy's core. 5,000 humans died to kill that one ship. The galaxy's forces had been trying to fight the Voidborn properly, with strategy and coordination. Humans just fought. They didn't need to understand the enemy. They just needed to break it. We won the war, Hana breathed, reading another document. Humans won the Harvest Wars. Not alone, but we were the difference. We turned the tide. And they were terrified of us, Nari added, pulling up another file. This one was a council meeting from 2,000 years ago. The holographic recording showed younger versions of the same elders who ruled now. Debate about what to do with humanity. They're too dangerous, one elder argued. Look at their planet. Look at how they evolved. They're apex predators who became civilized by accident, not by nature. They enjoy combat. They thrive in chaos. If they reach the stars as a military power, they'll become exactly what we just defeated. But they saved us. Another protested. This time. What about next time? What if they decide we're the threat? The Veltharan Emperor's younger self had spoken then. There is a third option. We help them. We guide their development. We suppress their aggressive instincts, make them peaceful. We've developed the technology during the war, psychic resonators that can reshape cultural memory. We make them forget the war. We make them forget what they were. We let them join us as children, protected and safe, until enough generations pass that their nature changes. You want to cage them, someone said. I want to save them from themselves, and save us from them. The vote had been close, but it passed. Humanity's early space colonies were dismantled. Their warships were destroyed. Every human was treated with technology disguised as medical care, technology that made them peaceful, compliant, gentle. The psychic barriers were built into their minds generation after generation, turning warriors into diplomats. Earth became a sanctuary that was really a prison. Humanity forgot themselves. Kiwan felt sick. Everything he'd worked for, every treaty he'd negotiated, every time he'd felt proud of humanity's peaceful nature, it was all built on a lie. They weren't peaceful. They were caged. We need to tell Earth, he said. Earth already knows, Nari replied, pulling up recent communications. Look, Suman received these files an hour ago. She's already sent the military. What military? Hana asked. We don't have military. Nari just pointed at the screen. The data was clear. Humanity had never fully accepted the psychic barriers. Some humans resisted naturally. Others were trained to resist. Across human space, in facilities marked as historical, sites or research centers, humans kept the old knowledge alive. They called it the Historical Preservation Corps, but it was an army. Officers trained in secret, weapons built and hidden, ships designed to look like colony transports but carrying enough firepower to level planets. For 200 years since humanity's official first contact with the galaxy, they'd been preparing. But why? Kiwan demanded. If the barriers were so effective, how did anyone remember to prepare? Because the barriers weren't perfect, Yuna said over the comm. Some humans broke through naturally. Warriors, fighters, people whose instincts were too strong to suppress. The first generation after integration, they knew something was wrong. They couldn't remember clearly, but they knew. So they prepared. They hid knowledge in traditions, in training exercises, in stories. Each generation passed it down, waiting for the day the barriers broke. When do the barriers break? Hana asked. An alarm answered her question. This one was different from the void-born warnings. This one came from inside the temple itself, from the ancient machinery built into its core. The psychic resonators that maintained galactic peace were failing. Without them, species would remember their old conflicts, their ancient hatreds, and humanity would remember everything. Kiwan felt it first, a pressure in his skull like something pushing outward. Memories that weren't his flooded in. Or maybe they were his, inherited through generations, locked away until now. He remembered the Gorgon cluster, though he'd never been there. He remembered fighting Voidborn in close quarters, though he'd lived his entire life as a diplomat, his species' genetic memory unlocked. Hana gasped beside him, her eyes going wide. I remember dying. Multiple times, different battles. How is that possible? It's not your memories, Nari said, though she was shaking too, experiencing the same thing. It's ancestral memory. Humans evolved to pass down survival information genetically. The barriers suppressed it. Now they're breaking. Across the temple, every human felt it. The guards fighting Voidborn suddenly moved better, fought harder, remembered tactics from wars they'd never learned. The civilians evacuating suddenly knew how to move under fire, how to help the wounded, how to survive. The temple inside their minds collapsed, and what rose from the ruins was old and sharp and angry. On Earth, Suman stood before the gathered military command. Every officer was experiencing the same thing, memories flooding back. But she kept her voice steady. "The elders tried to make us forget ourselves to save the galaxy from us," she said. "I'm angry about that, we're all angry. But right now the galaxy is dying. The Voidborn are winning. We can be angry later. Right now we fight. We fight as humans," an admiral said. It wasn't a question. "We fight as humans," Suman confirmed. "Full military response, no restrictions. Show them what we are. Show them what we've always been." The fleet that launched from Earth didn't look like ceremonial vessels anymore. Weapons deployed from hidden compartments. Armor plating emerged from disguised hulls. Ships that looked like peaceful colony transports revealed themselves as warships that would have made the old galactic empires jealous. At the temple, Taiyang felt the barriers break. He was holding a corridor against 20 Voidborn, outnumbered and exhausted. Then he remembered. He remembered wars across 100 worlds. He remembered fighting in vacuum with nothing but a pressure suit and a blade. He remembered winning against impossible odds, because that's what humans did. He looked at the Voidborn and smiled. They should have been terrifying, instead they were just another problem to solve. "Hyunwoo," he said calmly. "Remember the Gorgon Protocol?" The older man grinned. "I remember now." "You sure?" "It's risky." "Everything's risky. That's what makes it fun." They didn't fight like ceremonial guards anymore. They fought like humans, like warriors from a death world where only the strongest survived. The Voidborn discovered that fear worked both ways. Kiwan confronted the Veltharan Emperor in the evacuation bay. The ancient being was boarding an escape pod, leaving the temple to its fate. He stopped when Kiwan blocked his path. "You caged us," Kiwan said quietly. "You made us forget ourselves." "To save the galaxy," the Emperor replied. "And to save you from what you would become. You were afraid of us." "We still are." Kiwan felt the old rage, the warrior instinct screaming to punish this being who had imprisoned his species. But he also felt something else, the wisdom learned through 2 centuries of forced peace. The ability to choose. "You broke our temple," he said. "The temple of war inside us. You thought you were saving everyone. Maybe you were. Maybe you just delayed the inevitable. But now the barriers are broken, and you need to decide something, Emperor. Do you want us as allies or enemies?" The Emperor looked at this human who could kill him easily now, whose species could burn the galaxy if they chose. "What do you want?" The Earth fleet arrived like thunder. 200 ships dropped from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the battle. They didn't look like the sleek vessels of other species. They looked functional, brutal, designed by people who understood that space combat was about survival, not elegance. Dongyun watched from his station as the fleet deployed. He recognized the lead ship. It was commanded by Ji-hoon, a man the galaxy thought was a historical curator. In reality, he'd been preparing for this moment his entire life, training in secret, waiting for humanity to remember itself. "All ships, this is Commander Ji-hoon of the Earth Defense Fleet," the broadcast came through. "We're taking operational control of this battle. If you want to live, follow our instructions exactly." The elder species ships hesitated. They weren't used to taking orders from humans. But they were dying, their forces scattered, their tactics useless against the Voidborn. They didn't have better options. "Fleet acknowledging," the Veltharan command ship responded. "What are your orders?" "Stop fighting like you're civilized," Ji-hoon said. "The Voidborn don't care about your rules. Match their aggression. Target these coordinates, these weak points. Forget clean kills. Make them hurt. Make them angry. Make them chase you." It went against everything the elder species had learned in 800 years of peace. But humans had learned different lessons on their death world. Sometimes survival meant fighting dirty. At the temple, Taeyang's unit had linked up with other human guards, 50 soldiers now, holding the main evacuation corridors while civilians escaped. They'd taken casualties. 7 dead, 12 wounded, but they hadn't broken. More incoming, someone called. Big ones. The kind that wiped out the Veltherin elite guard. How many? 100! Maybe more, Hyunwoo laughed. It was a harsh sound, but genuine. Remember the siege of Karth? We held with 30 against thousands. We weren't at Karth, a young soldier said, confused. No, but our ancestors were, and now we remember. Hyunwoo checked his weapon. Same tactics. They rely on fear and overwhelming force. We rely on being too stupid to know when we're beaten. Standard human advantage. The Voidborn came like a wave of nightmares. They screamed, they clawed, they broke through walls that should have held. The Elder Defenders fell back in terror. The humans held their ground and fired. Every human was experiencing the same thing now, centuries of suppressed instinct flooding back. They didn't just remember the tactics. They remembered the feeling of it. The rhythm of combat that their species had practiced for millions of years on Earth. Predator instincts refined against a planet that tried to kill them daily. A Voidborn crashed into Taeyang's position. It was huge, covered in too many arms, its face a nightmare of screaming mouths. It should have killed him. Instead, Taeyang rolled under its guard, came up inside its reach and struck at joints that Minji's research had identified as critical. The creature fell. Taeyang didn't celebrate. He was already moving to the next target. His mind calm, his body acting on instinct older than civilization. In space, the human fleet demonstrated why Deathworlders made terrifying warriors. Elder species fought with precision and grace. Humans fought to win. They rammed enemy ships. They used disabled vessels as shields. They calculated acceptable losses and accepted them. Target the command clusters, Ji-hoon ordered. Ignore the small ships. Kill their coordination. Sir, that puts us in range of their heavy weapons, an officer pointed out. I know. Do it anyway. We've got armor. We've got redundancy. We can take hits they can't. Use that. The human ships drove deep into Voidborn formations, taking damage that would cripple Elder vessels, but keeping their core systems intact. They fought like they were designed to lose pieces and keep fighting, because that's exactly how they were designed. Humans had learned on Earth that perfection was less important than persistence. Damage report, Ji-hoon called after a particularly brutal exchange. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Weapons Array 3 is offline. We've lost 20% of our crew. Can we still fight? Yes, sir. Then keep fighting. Redirect life support from damaged sections. Route power to weapons. We're not done. This was the human way. Not fighting until it was safe. Fighting until it was finished. Minji's research proved critical. She'd identified how Voidborn fed on psychic energy, how they adapted to enemy tactics. But adaptation took time, and humans changed tactics too fast for them to adjust. One moment using coordinated strikes, the next moment individual chaos. The Voidborn couldn't predict them because humans barely predicted themselves. They're getting frustrated, Minji reported from her research station. She was analyzing Voidborn behavior in real time, sending updates to every human ship. They're used to enemies that fight logically. We're not fighting logically. We're fighting human, Donghyun replied. There's a difference. He was coordinating sensor data, feeding information to the fleet faster than the Elder species systems could process. Human technology wasn't more advanced, but humans were better at using what they had. Desperation and innovation made a powerful combination. In the temple, Hana helped evacuate the last civilian refugees. She wasn't trained for combat, but she remembered, not specific battles, but the general understanding that had kept humans alive on Earth. How to move under fire, how to assess threats, how to keep going when everything was terrible. An elder child separated from their family huddled in a corner. The Voidborn were close. Hana could hear them in the next corridor, tearing through the defenders. The child looked at her with hope, expecting this human diplomat to save them. Hana had spent her life being peaceful, being gentle, being what the galaxy expected. Now she remembered what she was beneath that. She picked up a fallen weapon, checked its charge, and positioned herself between the child and the door. "Stay behind me," she said. "I've got you." When the Voidborn burst through, Hana fought. She wasn't good at it, not like Taeyang or the trained soldiers, but she was good enough because good enough was what humans specialized in. They weren't the strongest species or the fastest or the smartest. They were the species that did whatever was necessary with whatever they had. The Voidborn fell. Hana fell too, wounded but alive. The child survived. Across the battlefield, 100 similar moments played out. Humans discovering they were more than they'd been told, more than they'd believed. Not because they were superior, but because they remembered how to struggle. The Voidborn fleet began to break. Not because humans were winning decisively, but because humans weren't losing. The Voidborn had expected fear. They got defiance. They expected surrender. They got stubbornness. They expected civilization. They got something older, something that civilization covered but never quite killed. "Sir, the enemy is starting to retreat," an officer reported to Jihoon. "Don't let them regroup. All ships pursue. We end this now. They're heading for the dimensional rift, their exit point. If they escape, they'll come back stronger." Then we seal the rift. Suggestions? Silence on the bridge. What Jihoon was asking was impossible. The dimensional rift was massive, stabilized by technology nobody understood. Sealing it would require power levels that would destroy any ship that tried. "I have an idea," Hyunwoo's voice came over the comm from the temple. "But you're not going to like it. We need to overload the temple's core reactors, the psychic resonators that maintained peace. If we reverse them, channel all that energy into the rift, it might be enough to seal it." "That would destroy the temple," the Veltharan Emperor said, listening in. "Yes. 800 years of peace, the greatest achievement in galactic history, which means nothing if we all die. Your choice, Emperor. Save the symbol or save the people." The Emperor closed his eyes. Making this decision aged him centuries. "Do it. Destroy the temple. Save the galaxy." Taeyang's unit fought their way to the temple's core. The route was chaos, Voidborn everywhere, the station falling apart. They lost more soldiers, but humans had experience with lost causes. They kept moving. "We need 10 minutes to set the charges," Hyunwoo said, working on the reactor controls. "Can we hold that long?" Taeyang looked at his remaining soldiers. 35 humans, exhausted, wounded, running on determination and genetic memory. "We'll hold. We always hold. That's what we do." The Voidborn came. Not dozens now, but hundreds, drawn to the core by some instinct that told them this was critical. They threw themselves at the human line with desperate fury. The humans threw themselves back with calm determination. For 10 minutes, 35 humans held the corridor. They fired until their weapons overheated. They fought hand to hand when ammunition ran out. They stood over fallen comrades and refused to retreat. Because retreating wasn't what humans did, not when something mattered. "Charges set," Hyunwoo called. "Everyone out." "We've got 90 seconds, they ran. Not in panic, but in controlled withdrawal, covering each other, helping the wounded. Professional even in retreat because humans had made an art form of snatching victory from defeat. The temple's core exploded. The psychic resonators, built to maintain peace, reversed their function one last time. All that collected energy, 800 years of enforced harmony, burst outward into the dimensional rift. The rift collapsed. The Voidborn fleet, caught half in and half out of reality, died screaming. 3 months after the battle, Kiwon stood in what used to be the council chamber. It was temporary now, built on a station the Veltharans donated while the galaxy figured out what came next. The temple was gone. 800 years of peace had ended in fire and violence, but everyone was alive to mourn it. The chamber was full. Every species sent representatives. They looked at the human delegation differently now, not with pity, but with something harder to define. Respect mixed with fear. Gratitude mixed with uncertainty. Kiwon carried a datapad with humanity's proposal. He'd worked on it with Suman, with Jihoon, with thousands of humans who remembered what they were now and had to decide what they wanted to be. "We could conquer you," he began, and the room went silent. "Let's be honest about that. You're not ready to fight. You haven't been for centuries. Your military forces are rebuilding from nothing. Ours never stopped existing. If humanity wanted to rule the galaxy, we could try." The Veltharan Emperor tensed. Other delegates shifted nervously. "But we don't want that," Kiwon continued. "We were angry when we learned the truth. We're still angry. You caged us. You made us forget ourselves. You violated our minds and our history. That's not something we can just forgive and forget." "Then what do you want?" an elder asked quietly. "To be equals, not children. Not protected, not caged, equals." Kiwon activated his datapad, projecting the treaty terms. "We call it the Compact of Open Gates. Humanity will maintain full military forces. We won't ask permission to expand. We won't accept restrictions on our development. In exchange, we offer protection. We'll defend the galaxy. We'll train your forces. We'll be the shield while you rebuild." "Why would you protect those who imprisoned you?" the Emperor asked. "Because you're not the ones who imprisoned us. They died 2,000 years ago. You inherited their choices, just like we inherited the consequences. Besides," Kiwan smiled, though it wasn't entirely friendly, "protecting isn't the same as trusting. We'll watch you carefully, and you'll watch us. That's how equals work." Hana stood beside her father. The wound she'd taken in the battle was healing, leaving a scar she refused to hide. "We're also proposing truth commissions," she said. "Every species will research and publish what really happened during the Harvest Wars and after. No more sealed files. No more erased history. If we're building a new galaxy, we build it on honesty." The debate lasted hours. Some species wanted to reject the terms, feared giving humans too much power. Others argued they had no choice. A few, mostly the younger species who hadn't been part of the original decision to cage humanity, thought the terms were fair. In the end, the vote was close. But it passed. The Veltharan Emperor signed first, his hand shaking slightly. "I hope we can earn your forgiveness," he said to Kiwan. "I hope so too," Kiwan replied. "But first we focus on earning each other's trust." On Earth, Suman addressed a crowd of millions. The planet was celebrating, but the celebration was complicated. They'd won. They'd remembered themselves. But the cost had been high. 15,000 human soldiers dead. 30,000 wounded. Colonies damaged. Resources depleted. "We fought because we had to," Suman told them. "We won because we're human and humans don't quit. But now we face a harder challenge. Being strong without being cruel. Being warriors without being warmongers. Remembering our nature without letting it define everything we are." She gestured to the sky, where construction ships were already working on a new defense network. "The galaxy needs us now. They need our strength, our stubbornness, our refusal to give up. But they also fear us, and they have good reason. We have to prove we're more than what we can destroy. We have to show them what we can protect." Across human space, the Historical Preservation Corps came out of the shadows. Training centers became official military academies. Hidden weapons factories became public defense contractors. Jihoon was promoted to Admiral of the First Fleet, command that no longer had to be secret. But the transition wasn't simple. For 200 years, humans had lived as peaceful citizens. Now they remembered being warriors. Some adapted easily. Others struggled with the return of aggressive instincts. Counselors worked overtime helping people balance the two sides of their nature. Nari published her research on the psychological barriers and their removal. It became required reading in every human school. "We can't go back to being caged," she wrote. "But we also can't pretend the peaceful centuries were a lie. We grew during that time. We learned diplomacy, culture, cooperation. The barriers were wrong, but they taught us things worth keeping." Taeyang was offered a position training joint galactic forces. He accepted but insisted on one condition. "We train them to be warriors, not killers," he told the council. "There's a difference. Warriors protect. Killers just destroy." His training program was brutal. He pushed recruits from every species to their limits, taught them that survival meant accepting discomfort, that victory meant refusing to quit. Many washed out. Those who completed it became the core of the new Galactic Defense Force. Yunwu worked with him, training officers. The old man had survived the battle despite taking wounds that should have killed him. "Humans are stubborn even about dying," he joked. But he was serious about one thing. Every class started with the same lesson. "Power without wisdom is destruction," he told them. "Strength without morals is tyranny. You're learning to fight. Never forget why you fight. The moment you fight for yourself instead of those you protect, you've already lost." Minji continued her research on the Voidborn. The dimensional rift was sealed, but fragments of the enemy remained in containment. She studied them, cataloged them, searched for understanding. "They're not evil," she explained in her published papers. "They're hungry. They evolved in a dimension where psychic energy is food. They can't help what they are, but we can help what we do about them. We can prepare. We can watch the rift. We can make sure they never return." Her work led to the creation of early warning systems across the galaxy, human-designed but operated by joint crews, another way to bind the species together through cooperation rather than conquest. Yuna, who'd hacked the archives, became the galaxy's premier information security specialist. She helped other species protect their data, while ensuring no one could hide truth the way the elders had hidden humanity's history. Transparency doesn't mean no privacy, she argued. It means no species can make decisions for another without their knowledge. Donghyun returned to his monitoring station, now upgraded and expanded. Earth wanted sensors everywhere watching for threats, but they made the data public, shared with all species. If we see danger, everyone sees it, Suman had decided. No more secrets that protect some by sacrificing others. A year after the battle, Kaiwan stood with his daughter at the construction site of the new Galactic Senate. Not a temple this time, just a meeting place where equals could debate, argue, and decide together. Do you think it'll work? Hana asked. The compact? The alliance? Can we really move past what they did? Kiwan thought about it. He'd spent the year negotiating, mediating disputes between species who were remembering old grievances now that the psychic resonators were gone. It was messy. Democracy usually was, I don't know, he admitted. Maybe we'll fail. Maybe old hatreds will tear us apart. Maybe humanity will decide we're better off alone. But we're trying, and that's more than we had before. The Temple of Eternal Accord was built on suppression. This Senate is built on choice. People can leave if they want. They can disagree. They can be themselves. Including us, Hana said. We get to be human now. Whatever that means. Whatever that means, Kiwan agreed. Above them, human warships patrolled alongside Veltharan cruisers and ships from a dozen other species. The formations were still awkward, the coordination imperfect. But they were learning. Jihoon commanded the joint fleet, but he made sure every species had representation in command structure. We're the best warriors, he told his officers. That doesn't make us the best leaders. Leadership requires consensus. Let the others argue strategy while we handle tactics. It was a compromise that worked. Human forces did the heavy fighting, but civilian leadership stayed mixed. Balance through division of responsibility. Taeyang graduated his first class of joint species warriors. They weren't as good as human special forces, but they were good enough. And they understood something that had been lost during the long peace, that strength backed by will could protect what civilization alone could not. At the ceremony, species that had been caged together under false peace now stood as allies forged through shared struggle. They'd fought beside humans. They'd seen humans bleed. Fear turned to respect. Suman visited the memorial built on Earth's moon. 15,000 names carved in stone. Humans who'd died in the battle. She touched a few names she'd known personally, then addressed the crowd gathered for the anniversary. We remember our dead, she said, but we also remember why they fought. Not for glory or conquest. They fought so others could live. That's the best of what we are. The worst of what we are is also real. The aggression, the violence, the capacity for terrible things. We can't deny that either. She looked up at the stars. The galaxy needs guardians. Not rulers. Guardians who know the cost of violence and choose it only when necessary. That's our responsibility now.